Hello friends, welcome to my channel Clinical Biochemistry by Dr. P.K. Prabhakar. Today I am going to talk about the glucose estimation method. So there are different methods for the glucose estimation. We are having fall in U method, which is one of the oldest method for the glucose estimation. It is not a glucose estimation method, it is the estimation of a reducing sugar. Then we are having orthotolidine methods. There normally we are going to measure the aldehyde groups, aldehyde compounds, and this is the third method, which or the currently used method, or the most one of the best method you can call it, which is called as glucose oxidase and peroxidase method, or in short form we are using GOD POD method. So this is in one of the enzymatic method for the glucose estimation. So before going to the further to the detail about the experiments, first we should understand what is the glucose and why we need to estimate glucose. What is the significance of glucose? If you will see the glucose, this is one of the most abundant carbohydrate present in the peripheral circulations, and carbohydrate itself one of the most abundant organic compound, or you can call it biomolecules in the planet. So in our body, in the peripheral tissue, glucose is the most abundant organic compound or the carbohydrate, and one of the most important source for the energy production in our body. So glucose gives us the maximum energy, whatever energy we are getting it. Whenever will be any kind of imbalance in our body of the glucose, we are having two kinds of abnormality. These are called as hyperglycemia, which occurs due to the relatively deficiency or dysfunction of the insulin. So hyperglycemia means increased level of glucose. There are many reasons. It may be caused because of the pancreatitis, pituitary or thyroid dysfunction, or renal failures, or sometimes because of the liver disease also. Similarly, we are having hypoglycemia also. Compared to hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia is little bit less frequently observed, where glucose level is come less than the normal value. And this hyperglycemia is caused due to insulinemia, hypopituitarism, or neoplasm. Neoplasm means cancer. Hypopituitarism means when pituitary glands does not works up to the expectation or up to the normal value, less productions. So we are having two different hormones in our body which normally regulates this glucose level. Insulin decreases blood glucose level by increasing glucose utilization or reduced glucose production in our body. So because of insulin, we utilizes more glucose and produces less glucose. Opposite, we are having glucagon, which normally increases glucose level in our body or in the blood circulations to process by reducing glucose utilization. So glucose is not going to be utilized and we produces more glucose because of this glucagon. So depending on the condition, this insulin and glucagon going to regulate your glucose level of your body. Now if you will see for this test, what are the procedures we are going to see. So first we will see sample. So normally for this test we require a blood sample. Actually we are not going to take the complete, we can measure the complete blood also, but preferably we are going to take the plasma. For the plasma, the blood will be collected into the sodium fluoride vial. Why this sodium fluoride vial? Sodium fluoride is normally we are going to use from the 1940s. It has been started in 1941. Sodium fluoride tubes were introduced for the blood collection for glucose measurement. So what is the use of this sodium fluoride? Sodium fluoride normally going to inhibit glycolysis. So glycolysis is the glucose breakdown. So if you have collected blood sample now and if you are going to perform glucose estimation after some time, in that case what will happen? Some of the glucose will be metabolized through glycolysis. So the actual glucose what you are going to measure will come slightly less value. So that's why we are going to use sodium fluoride vial where glycolysis will be inhibited. This sodium fluoride is called as anti-glycolytic agent. How it is working as an anti-glycolytic agent? This sodium fluoride normally inhibits the glycolysis by inhibiting enolase enzyme. Enolase is the one of the enzyme in the glycolytic late phase where normally we are producing energy. So enolase will be inhibited and ultimately glycolysis will be inhibited. So it prevents glycolysis and glucose level will not decrease. This is anti-glycolytic nature. This sodium fluoride also works as anticoagulant by preventing, it binds with calcium, and when calcium is required for blood clotting, when calcium will not be available, blood will not be clotted. So sodium fluoride works as both anticoagulant as well as anti-glycolytic agent. The main principle of this test is, if you see the test, this test occurs in the two-step reaction. So in the first step, the aldehyde group of glucose is going to be oxidized. So glucose is a aldose, aldehyde containing carbohydrate. So the aldehyde group of glucose is oxidized by glucose oxidase enzyme to give gluconic acid and hydrogen peroxide. So this is the first reaction, and the produced H2O2, whatever we have produced here, that H2O2 is going to be used in the second reaction. So the hydrogen peroxide is broken down to water and nascent oxygen, and that oxygen actually reacts with this 4-amino antipyrine or phenol, and ultimately gives us the quinonamine, which is a colored compound. This is a chromophore compound, chromogenic compound. This produces the color. So peroxidase normally works on this hydrogen peroxide, breaks down into the water and the nascent oxygen, and that nascent oxygen reacts with this 4-amino antipyrine, and ultimately this 4-amino antipyrine converted to quinonamine, which is a colored compound, and that color we are going to measure. So the amount of quinonamine produced depends on how much 4-amino antipyrine you have used. This 4-amino antipyrine used depends on how much oxygen has been produced from H2O2, and H2O2 production depends on how much glucose you have used. So overall, the color of this one depends on directly proportional to the glucose concentration in the test sample. So the glucose is converted to gluconic acid and hydrogen peroxide by the enzyme glucose oxidase. That is the first reaction. Then hydrogen peroxide splits into water and nascent oxygen. This nascent oxygen then combined with a chromogen 4-amino antipyrine or 4-amino phenazone plus phenol, and it gives you a pink color. And glucose oxidase enzyme specifically, in this case, compared to the orthotoluidine and compared to the Foligno methods, this is the more specific method, more sensitive method. Why? Because this glucose oxidase works only on the glucose, not on any other aldehydic groups, aldehydic compounds, or any reducing agent. So this method gives you the true value of glucose level compared to the other methods. What we require in this case is, we require a test solutions. So either you can use fluoride plasma or you can use serum, but when you are going to use serum, you have to use within 30 minutes of blood extraction. Then second thing, we require glucose reagent. Here we are having, normally if you are going to purchase the kit, you will have a single vial where all these 5 different components will be there. But if you want, you can prepare by yourself also. There these 4 compounds will be in the reagent 1 and this will be in a reagent 2. Just I will tell you, on all the reagent we are going to prepare in a buffer system, that is called as phosphate buffer, whose pH will be 7. So in that case, glucose oxidase roughly we require 650 units, peroxidase we require roughly 500 units, 4-amino antipyrine we requires 20 mg, and sodium azide we require 30 mg for 100 ml of reagent. So this will be my reagent 1 and this will be my reagent 2, phenol, that will be 100 mg per dl. So this is depending on how you are going to, either you are going to prepare reagent by yourself or you are going to purchase it. So if you are purchasing, then no need to make preparation by yourself. You will have a single vials, in that one you will have all the complete glucose reagent. Next thing, we require glucose standards for the comparison. So that we are going to use 100 mg per dl or percentage. We require distilled water, we require water bath for maintaining temperature 37 degrees centigrade. Then we require dry test tubes and pipettes. If you are going to prepare reagent by yourself, then reagent 1 and 2 are stable at refrigerator temperature, that is 2 to 8 degrees centigrade for 6 months. Okay. So when you are going to prepare by yourself, we are going to mix reagent 1 and 2 into 2:1 ratio. 2 part of reagent 1 and 1 part of reagent 2, but at the time of reaction only, when you are going to use the reaction, when you are going to utilize the reaction. What is the procedures? We are going to take 3 different test tubes, and these 3 test tubes we are going to designate as blank test tube, B, test tube T, and standard test tube S. Then in all the three tubes we are going to put 1 ml glucose reagent. Glucose reagent which contains glucose oxidase, peroxidase, 4-amino antipyrine, sodium azide or phenol. So that reagent we are going to keep 1 ml in all the three tubes. In the blank tube we are going to put 10 ml, 10 microliter distilled water. In the test tube we will put 10 microliter plasma or the serum, and in the standard we are going to put 10 microliter of glucose standard, which is 100 mg per dl. Then mix all the reagent in separate tubes and mix thoroughly and incubate for 10 to 15 minutes at 37 degrees centigrade. If you are going to keep it at 25 degrees centigrade, then you can keep up to 30 minutes. But normally because we are going to use water bath, so we can maintain at 37 degrees centigrade and we can do in within 10 to 15 minutes. After that one we are going to measure their optical density of the color production by using, if you are going to use colorimeter, then you can use green filter, or if you are using a spectrophotometer, then you can fix the wavelength 530 or any range between 505 to 550 nanometer. Now once you have we have taken the optical density, then you are having two options. What are the options? Option number 1, take the reading of all the three tubes. So you will have optical density for test, optical density for blank, optical density for standard. In that case you can use this method, plasma glucose mg per dl equal to optical density of test minus optical density of blank divided by optical density of standard minus optical density of blank. So that will be your glucose concentration in your test sample. You have second option. Here we can use blank tube solution, you can use for making instrument reading 0. So instrument will put the blank solution in the instrument, either colorimeter or spectrophotometer, make that it will read 0, and then you will have only two readings, optical density of test and standard, and then you can use this method. So optical density test divided by optical density standard. So by any methods you can use it. Commonly we are going to use this method, so that will be better. Then you have a simple formula also. When you have calculated that one, then you are going to see whatever glucose value you have got it, how it is going to fall in the observation. So normal glucose level for adult is 70 to 100 mg per dl in the fasting case, or for children it will be 55 to 90. So normally most probably we are going to consider 70 to 110 mg per dl only. Whenever you are having high glucose level, more than 110 or less than 70 mg per dl, we are going to call hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia. Hyperglycemia is when glucose level will be more than normal value, that is more than 110 mg per dl, and hypoglycemia is when glucose level will be less than 70 mg per dl. There are many reasons can be there for this hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia. So for severe hyperglycemia can occur because of diabetes mellitus, Cushing syndromes or acromegaly, or because of obesity. Mild hyperglycemia means less increase in the glucose level can occur because of the pancreatic disorders, hepatic disorders, sometimes steroid therapy, or because of the shocks. Similarly, severe hypoglycemia can cause because of the insulinemia, hypopituitarism, ectopic insulin production means insulin productions outside the pancreas because of the tumors and other things. Then adrenal cortical insufficiency. Mild hypoglycemia, it should not be hyper, if it will be hypo. So mild hypoglycemia is caused because of Addison's disease, glycogen storage disease, where glycogen will be deposited into the different organs, especially in the livers, kwashiorkors, and sometimes we are taking some of the drugs, some of the medicines which normally decreases the glucose level in our body, like salicylate or anti-tuberculosis drugs. So these are the major reasons because of the hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia. The major disease related to glucose level in our body is called as diabetes mellitus. So diabetes mellitus is mainly caused because of insufficient insulin, when your body does not produce sufficient insulin, or you are having inefficient insulin. You have sufficient amount of insulin but they are not able to work it. In any of the conditions, either you have insufficient insulin or inefficient insulin, The condition is called hyperglycemia. So glucose level will be more than the normal value. There are three criteria has been given by WHO and American Diabetic Association by which you can decide when a person will be called as diabetic. So first criteria is if a fasting glucose level for any person will be equal to more than 126 mg per dl, we can call them diabetic. If a person will have diabetic symptoms plus random or casual plasma glucose will be equal to more than 200 mg per dl, means 200 plus diabetic symptom, we can call them diabetic. Or 2 hour postprandial, means after giving food, after 2 hours you are going to collect blood sample, and that blood sample will give you more than 200 mg per dl. If a person is going to fall in any of the category, we can call them diabetic. So diabetic is characterized, you can decide by any of these criteria, but more commonly we can, or more specifically we can decide a person is diabetic or impaired glucose tolerance they are having, or any other condition is there, by GTT test. So we can have a separate video on GTT, we will talk that one. When we are talking about the this GOD POD methods, there are certain limitations, certain advantages also there, certain limitations are also there. Advantages is because this is enzyme based method, so you can have a only you are going to measure the glucose value, and this method is best for glucose estimation from the blood, from the cerebrospinal fluid. In the urine there are number of other parameters, other chemicals are there which is normally going to affect your glucose estimation. So inhibiting or affecting parameters, or you can call it impurities, are too much in the urine, so that's why it is not the best method for the glucose estimation in the urine. Second limitation of this method is linear for up to 500 mg per dl, means you can measure glucose up correctly with this method up to 500 mg per dl. If any sample will have more than 500 mg per dl, it will not be very good. In that conditions you have to dilute the sample and then you can measure the glucose. So this is GOD POD method for glucose estimation. Hope it will be clear for you. If you have understand it, if you like the video, press the like button, share it with your friends, with your colleagues, and if you are not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it. So thank you very much. Next time with the next video, next content of the clinical biochemistry, I will come it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.